Hey everyone, I just got back from watching Captain America: Brave New World for a second time. I have to admit that this movie wasn't as bad as some of the reviews are making it out to be. But did the movie have any problems? Yes, many actually. However, not every film is going to be another Infinity War or Endgame. In this video, I will tell you everything that worked in the film and everything that didn't. At the end, I'll ask you a question, and your answer will determine whether this is a movie worth watching or not. So without wasting any time, let's get into it. On paper, this movie might feel like a sequel to The Incredible Hulk or Eternals. But think about it. If the US government wants to take control of the adamantium found on Celestial Island, there's really no better person to handle it than Captain America. Cap has always been tied to US politics. It's where his journey began. So even though parts of the plot come from films completely unrelated to Cap, it makes perfect sense that he'd be the one to step up and deal with the situation. One of the key reasons Marvel made Captain America 4 was to replicate the magic of Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which many fans still consider one of the best superhero films outside the Avengers. This movie mirrors the Winter Soldier in so many ways. It's kind of wild. First up, both movies kick off with Cap on a government mission where he does 90% of the work. In both films, these missions set the stage for everything that follows. Then there's the familiar team: Falcon, Black Widow, and Cap himself. Plus, both movies deal with mind control. Dr. Stearns controls Secret Service agents, including Isaiah Bradley, much like how Hydra uses trigger words to control Bucky Barnes in The Winter Soldier. Next, Sam Wilson gets attacked in broad daylight by Sidewinder, the head of the Serpent Society. He has been paid by Stearns to steal the adamantium and take out Sam. This mirrors when Bucky attacks Nick Fury on the street after being ordered by Hydra to eliminate the SHIELD director. Then, Steve and Natasha uncover Arnim Zola's digitized mind at Camp Lehigh, revealing Hydra's infiltration of SHIELD and the true purpose of Project Insight. In this movie, Sam and Joaquin find Samuel Stearns at a black site where he has been a prisoner for 16 years working on secret projects for Ross. Both films even end similarly, where rather than fighting the villain, Cap tries to talk them down. In The Winter Soldier, Steve refuses to keep fighting Bucky, hoping to reach the friend he once knew. In this movie, Sam refuses to fight Red Hulk, believing that deep down, Ross can still change. These are all huge positives for the film. After all, if you're drawing inspiration from one of the best MCU movies ever made, you're definitely on the right track. But here's where the issues pop up. The film was heavily marketed as a Cap vs. Red Hulk showdown, but in reality, Red Hulk only appears on screen for about 8 minutes. Now let's rewind 11 years, when Marvel dropped 2 trailers for Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Both trailers made it look like Bucky, aka the Winter Soldier, was the main villain. But in the end, the real antagonist turned out to be Hydra, secretly infiltrating the government, and SHIELD. Marvel applied the same marketing strategy for this movie, constantly showing Red Hulk as the main villain. But the big mistake was already made when they revealed Tim Blake Nelson returning as the leader. That pretty much gave away that Dr. Stearns would be the real villain and would likely transform Ross into Red Hulk. Now imagine if Marvel hadn't spoiled that reveal. What if Red Hulk's appearance had been kept a secret too? The audience would have gone crazy when it happened on screen. But if you're going to reveal them in the trailer, you have to make sure you only show the tip of the iceberg instead of everything. I also understand why Marvel did this. They had to rely on Red Hulk to sell the film because they didn't want to spoil anything about Dr. Stearns. The issue, though, is that if Stearns had a proper character arc, the trailers would have had plenty of material to work with without giving away too much. But since Stearns' arc was underdeveloped, Marvel overcompensated by focusing the marketing on Red Hulk, even though he only plays a major role in the final 8 minutes. In contrast, The Winter Soldier kept Bucky as the main villain throughout the entire movie. Even though Hydra was the real threat, the audience wasn't misled by the trailers because Bucky remained one of the main villains. As a result, the audience got more than they were promised. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with marketing a Cap vs. Red Hulk film. But if that's what you're selling, Red Hulk needs to be a bigger part of the story, not just a brief appearance at the end. If you ask anyone about this movie, they'll likely mention the Red Hulk fight. The film would have been stronger if both Ross and Dr. Cerns had more developed character arcs, making the story feel more satisfying. Despite its issues, there are still some great things about this film. One of the highlights is that every character took themselves seriously. Hell, even Harrison Ford gave it his all as Thunderbolt Ross. He wasn't just there for the paycheck, you could tell he truly embraced the role. And I can't emphasize enough how good of an actor Anthony Mackie is. Both he and Danny Ramirez have incredible chemistry. Every time they're on screen together, it just clicks. Another fantastic aspect is the quality of the dialogue. The characters don't just say random lines. They speak in a way that feels true to who they are. This is something that was really lacking in Thor, Love and Thunder, where they turned a god into a joke. Now let me give you an example that truly proves this movie is getting some irrational hate. Take a look at this powerful moment where Ross opens up to Sam Wilson and says, "I had to survive so that my daughter knew there was more to her father." Hearing this, Sam Wilson responds with a simple yet powerful line, "I know what it's like to feel you have something to prove." This line is so real. As a black man, Sam knows what it's like to struggle with things others may not have to face, just like Steve Rogers, the skinny kid who was constantly bullied and had to prove himself every step of the way. Both of them, in their own ways, understand what it feels like to have something to prove. The ending of this film truly solidifies Sam Wilson as Captain America. There's a moment where he says to Red Hulk Ross, "We both know you can take me out with one punch, but I don't think you want to do that. I might be crazy, but I think you're trying to change." Sam was terrified to his core walking toward Red Hulk, but he still didn't back down from telling Ross the truth. He chose not to fight, knowing it was Ross underneath. Just like Steve Rogers said to Bucky, "I'm not going to fight you. You're my friend." Both Steve and Sam stepped away from a fight, knowing the person they were up against wasn't in control of themselves. Their instinct is to lay down and let the other guy crawl over them instead of just cutting the wire. This is what makes them worthy of the Captain America mantle, and this film did a remarkable job with it. Now, more than ever, I'm convinced Sam Wilson truly deserves to be Captain America and that Steve Rogers made the right choice. So let me ask you the question I said I would ask. Do you have more respect for Sam Wilson after watching the film than you did before? If your answer is yes, then you have to admit the movie succeeded in its goal. Yes, the film has undercooked villains and little to no character development for the side characters, but what it nails is Sam's never-give-up attitude. There's a scene where Joaquin Torres, lying in a hospital bed, says something really interesting. He tells Sam, "You never messed up like I did. You never got shot out of the sky and nosedived into the Indian Ocean. You're always on point." Sam chuckles at first, but then gives a profound response. "If I'm not on point, I feel like I let down everyone else who was fighting for a seat at the table." He then finishes by saying, "This pressure of always being on point weighs on you, makes you wonder if you'll ever just be enough." This line, along with Anthony Mackie's incredible acting, is really what Captain America is all about. So here's the bottom line. The movie may have a weak villain, some horrible CGI, and side characters that didn't really need to be there, but what it got right was cementing Sam Wilson as Captain America, a man who is 100% capable of leading the Avengers, just like Steve Rogers. And anytime someone complains that Bucky should have been Captain America instead of Sam, well, I hear you. And what you're saying makes sense too. I mean, Bucky is a super soldier, and he would have been a great replacement for Steve, but, and please hear me out here, during Civil War, at one point, it was Steve Rogers who took instructions from Sam Wilson rather than the other way around. "We gotta go. That guy's probably in Siberia by now. We gotta draw out the flyers. I'll take Vision. You get to the jet. Number, you get to the jet, both of you. The rest of us aren't getting out of here." Sam was the one making the call. Steve was clearly more concerned about keeping everyone safe, but Sam was ready to make the sacrifice play. And that's why Steve listened to Sam's suggestion. It's not every day that someone is capable enough to tell Steve Rogers what to do, but Sam did that. He may not have the super soldier serum, but he represents Steve with every bone in his body. You know, it used to be that whenever a new Marvel movie came out, critics would give it extra points just for being a Marvel title. But now, it feels like they're deducting point. Marvel films always face critics who focus only on the negatives, no matter what. Captain America has always been my favorite character in the comics, and my audience knows that from day one. Trust me, if this film was bad, I'd be the first to say it. And I am calling out Marvel for how poorly they wrote the villains in this film. They really did a horrible job with that, but even with that flaw, I still enjoyed the movie. I'd say they got at least 71% right. If you're hesitating to watch it thinking it won't be worth your time, I'd say give it a shot. It's not a masterpiece, but it's certainly not as bad as some critics are saying. Let me know your thoughts on the movie. I really want to have a discussion with you all. The question I asked, I hope you take the time to answer in the comments. I really want to know where my audience stands on this. And my message to Marvel is this: try writing a movie that doesn't divide fans into groups, where one half loves it and the other half hates it. Try writing a movie that unites people. Movie theaters are still one of the few places where people don't care about nationality, ethnicity, or race. They go there to get immersed in a story. So write a story that is worth our precious time and money, something that makes us want to take our families and friends to the theater. Instead of counting on your name and luck, count on your writers to do better. If you could give us movies like The Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame in the past, you can surely take us on another ride with Fantastic Four, Avengers Doomsday, and Secret Wars. I'm counting on you, Marvel. Don't let us down.